different projects, you might have a lot of different types of KPI. I'm going to present to you a few of them here and also explain a few of them. At least I'm going to try to explain you in more details the more important ones. And then I'm also going to explain to you the other KPIs that you might have. For example, if you are working with a product development that's going to go for production, you are going to have production KPIs. If you are working in a project in a construction environment, you might have the health, safety, environment KPIs that you might not have in a product development project there. So it's quite relevant that you understand the type of industry that you are working on, the type of project that you have, because that also will determine the type of KPIs that your project needs to have. Of course, if I talk in general here, you're going to see that a lot of KPIs, they are very common, and if you're working in any type of project, you should have at least some type of business case KPI and some type of time KPI. What do I mean by business case KPI? You can have a very, first of all, business case KPI, I'm also including the cost management KPIs, which you can have the CPI, that's the standard KPI from the PMBOK, that means the cost performance indicator, or you have, very common in companies, a lot of KPIs, they compare budget versus your estimation at completion. And here you can have a lot of variation, but there's always commonly you're comparing your budget, your baseline with your estimation at completion. Then here, that's probably one KPI that you can find in any type of project that you're going to work on. But also, if you have a business case, you can have different KPIs. You can have the net NPV, that stands for net present value, that here you are trying to estimate the value if a project is creating value in the long term or they are destroying value. You can have a KPI to measure the gross margin of the project or the operating margin of the project, or also you can have the gross margin for the product or the operating margin for the product. You can have a KPI that's called the IRR, that's internal rate of return. In the internal rate of return, you're looking for the interest rate that will bring the NPV to zero. Here it's also one of the ways that you can assess the risk of the project and how far you are from your WACC. But you also can have a KPI that's for your payback, meaning that for the amount of money that the company is investing in the project, how long it will take for the money to get this money back. That's what a payback means. So those are for sure the most common KPIs that you are going to find in a project. But again, if you are working on R&D project, you can find a KPI, you can have a KPI that's the development cost or the R&D cost divided by sales. You can have a KPI that's the product unit cost. You can have a KPI for a product market share. You can have a KPI for the total revenue, or you can have even a KPI for CapEx. CapEx stands for capital expenditure. So those are the most common business case KPIs that you're going to see out there. Then of course it's important that you as a project manager, you understand and you know those KPIs, and you also understand when it's useful to use those KPIs. Because again, if you're working in construction project, for example, for a bridge, it might not make sense for this specific project when talking about market share, because if you're doing the full bridge, there's no discussion about what's your market share. Of course, the construction company can have a market share for the industry or for the sector that's working on, true, but that would not be a KPI for the project itself.